This episode contains discussions of death, grief, and alcoholism. Listen at your own discretion. It is Monday, the 20th of January, 2025. My name is Pigeon Rose, and this is my song of the day. Here we are with another week. Today we're starting off in quite a low place because today is the 19th death anniversary of a man named Bryan Glancy. Now, who is Bryan Glancy, you might ask? Bryan Glancy was a musician from Manchester, and he was a good friend of the band Elbow. And their album, The Seldom Seen Kid, which I've mentioned and talked about songs from before, was sort of a tribute to him because The Seldom Seen Kid was a nickname that Guy's father had for him, I think. This song that we're doing today is called Friend of Ours. It's the last track on The Seldom Seen Kid, unless you include the bonus tracks like We're Away, which I certainly do. But it's very much the kind of emotional climax of the album where it's the song that's the most directly about Bryan, and as such is not very happy, of course. But I adore this song. It's so pretty. And so we're just going to go listen to it and then come back in a few minutes and talk about it. And that was Friend of Ours by Elbow for Bryan Glancy. I do want to say, by the way, before I continue, Bryan Glancy, though he was a musician, I don't think released any music in his lifetime. And only back in 2022, an album was finally released of his music called A Lovely Message. I still haven't listened to it. I've had it saved for so long. But if you want to check out Bryan Glancy himself, that exists. So that's fun. Anyway, man, this song is such an emotional powerhouse. It's so interesting composition-wise because there's actually quite a few instruments on it, but it has a very spare, very minimalistic feel to it, you know, because it starts off with just like the guitar and the drums and the bass guitar a bit and the vocals, and there's a bit of piano as well, and then strings come in and it builds up to sort of a loud moment and then immediately dies away again. And I just love how it sounds because it's complex, but it's also very simple and very spare, and I really like that. In terms of the song itself, it's about missing Bryan and like feeling like you're gonna still run into him when you can't, obviously, because he's dead. And so there's very few lyrics to this song, but it goes, before leaving, get to the bar. No one round here makes you pay. Never very good at goodbyes. So gentle, shoulder charge. Love you, mate. So apparently, Guy Garvey has said that whenever he would just run into Bryan on the street, he would always end the conversation. Bryan would always end the conversation with "Love you, mate," which feels very Mancunian, you know. And so it's here as a refrain of Guy saying it back to him, you know. But yeah, before leaving, get to the bar. No one around here makes you pay. Just about like this sense of community and people loving each other. Now, of course, Bryan Glancy unfortunately died largely due to his own issues with alcohol, which comes up several times in the album. And so, of course, talking about going to the bar is sort of an ironic sort of thing to bring up here, you know. Never very good at goodbyes. So gentle, shoulder charge, love you, mate. So he's saying, like, you know, he's bad at saying goodbye, and so they would just bump shoulders off each other and say, love you, mate. And you can really picture it, you know, these gruff, aging Mancunians just being a bit, like, not toxic masculine, but, like, not really being able to express their feelings and saying, just love you, mate. You know, it's sweet. And yeah, so I love how after the first love you, mate, you get the strings doing the love you, mate. And I love the strings there. And then the strings eventually build up a bit more, and you get Salford skyline blue, always you, could fly around any corner, but until you do, love you, mate. So Salford is a place in the greater Manchester area. I actually was there with my dad once, and we could see dark clouds coming in, and my dad was like, oh, Salford skyline gloom. But anyway, always you could fly around any corner. So he's talking about being used to like turning a corner and running into Bryan there. And so he feels like when he walks around Salford, which is where Bryan was from, he could bump into him around any corner. And of course, that isn't true, but it's that feeling with grief that you have where you feel like you see people everywhere, or that you expect to see people everywhere because they were part of your routine and part of your daily life, and they're gone. And it takes your brain a bit to adjust to the fact that they're gone, you know? So you expect them to fly around any corner, but then it's, but until you do, love you, mate. And so invoking the the way that Bryan used to say goodbye, he's saying like, until I see you again, love you, goodbye, right? Kind of like saying like, until we're reunited in the afterlife in a way. But I love how the song has this big gap here because it builds up with the could fly around any corner till you do. And then it just drops out to just the bass going dum 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 dum. And then he says, love you, mate. And then it's immediately followed by piano going like doo-doo-doo. I just love how delicate it all is. It's so deliberate, and the big tension between the but until you do, love you, mate. Oh, I love this song. It's so good. It makes me so sad, especially because the order of the album is really interesting. We've talked about a few songs from the album now. The song before this one is One Day Like This, which you'll remember is the big bombastic, throw those curtains wide, and then immediately followed up with this song as the ending. But the song before One Day Like This is Some Riot, which is a really sad song about someone's life being ruined by alcohol abuse. So it creates this interesting sort of parabola of emotions at the end of the album. Anyway, this is probably a short episode, even though it's not a short song, just because there's very few lyrics. But I just really love when songs deal with subjects like this so simply. Like there's only 11 lines in this song, and it perfectly captures what grief is like and what being unused to someone's lack of presence is like, There's a reason why this is one of my favorite albums of all time, and one of my favorite Elbow songs. Now, they don't do it live very often for obvious reasons, but, just such a great... And the version with the studio orchestra as well, the concert of this album with the London BBC Orchestra or whatever it is in Abbey Road. The version of this song is also really good from that. The strings are so gorgeous in that version, Anyway, I don't think I have much else to say. Check out Bryan Glancy's music if you're interested, I suppose. Yeah, 19 years is so wild because the album came out in 2008 and my first Elbow concert was 2009. So it's weird to me. I was realizing because I turned 30 this year and I'm like, oh, in 3 years, it'll have been 20 years since this album came out. And in 4 years, it'll have been 20 years since my first Elbow concert. That's so strange because 16 years is still a long time. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. Please hit like, hit subscribe, leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think. Tell other people about this show. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you tomorrow.
Break it down.